Hey, what's up, everyone? So if you saw the video yesterday, you know that I've been enjoying playing around with cast speed into attack speed and then stacking as much of that as possible with Kinetic Bolt. We had a blast a couple days ago crashing the client. We never crashed the server, so don't blame me on that. Only the client crashed. It feels like there's actually a problem. There's a bug in the game where Kinetic Bolt calculations, unfortunately, actually kind of crashed the game. Even without too much attack speed, I've run into the game just crashing with using the skill, so be warned. What I wanted to do is see if I could get away from the Wilmas, get away from the totem stuff, and make this into kind of a fun build that I would enjoy playing. What I'm going to present to you today is two different variations. A quote-unquote budget, we're talking maybe in about 30 divines, quote-unquote budget version that is also very, in my opinion, resilient. I'm gonna stop using that word tanky, but in my opinion, it's pretty resilient. Max spell suppression, 15k armor behind 23% PDR from a Chaos Golem, as well as 5,300 life, 50% evasion, all of that. Decently resilient, good life regen, and only about 30 divines. Then I'm going to show you guys kind of like the high investment version. Also, I recognize that this is not the best archetype. This is not the best ascendancy. If you just want to go full Giga Chad, big D damage, play it on a Deadeye, play it on a Raider with endless munitions, or play it on a champion. I like Golemancer. I like the challenge of doing something a little bit different, but if you want to just do pure insanity, do it on one of those classes. The goal here is just to show you a lot of options, show you something that's in the game. I am not proposing this as a build for people to play. So yeah, let's get to talking about what this is, and I just want to share some of the stuff with you guys. So what this is Anomalous Kinetic Bolt, which gives you at 20% quality, increases and reductions to cast speed applied to attack speed at 50% of their value. By default on Kinetic Bolt, and what kind of makes it unique as a wanding attack skill, is increases to spell damage also give you 2x on attack damage. So every 1% spell damage gives you 2% attack damage. So with these two things combined, we can do some really cool stuff by stacking Ashes of Stars quality, as well as Diala's Malefication, as well as cluster jewels like this that give you spell damage and cast speed. That 13% spell damage is 26% attack damage, and that 4% cast speed is 8% attack speed. And we still get the cast speed. We're stacking power and frenzy charges. Power charges give us some damage, as well as crit chance, crit multi. And frenzy charges give us not only a more damage multiplier, but it double dips on the attack speed, because normally each frenzy charge gives you 4% attack speed and 4% cast speed. But since it 2x multiplies, we actually get 12% attack speed, because 2 times 4 on the cast speed plus the 4 from the 4% attack speed. So that's kind of like the core of the setup right here. We're using our golems. We're using a stone, ice, lightning, and chaos golem. Because we are a golemancer, we have Liege the Primordial. They'll get resummoned. We get +1 here. We get another +1 here. And then we are using an Animus Stone, which also gives us an additional +1 for a total of 4 golems. And then what we're doing, since we're frenzy charge stacking, in this version of the build, like this might not be the actual ideal, is I decided to lean into as many frenzy charges as possible, stack as much damage per frenzy charge. So I have this synthesized ring here, which gives me, and this is kind of reusing gear from a previous build, we are getting 8 to 16 cold damage per frenzy charge right here on this ring. You can craft the prefix there with an Essence of Delirium. And then we are using Ice Bite and Awaken added cold damage. And then I crafted, this wand is not perfect at all. This is like kind of a crappy wand for this build, but we can craft with Essence of Hatred or flat damage on the prefix right there. Like this is a pretty mid wand, honestly. But cool thing is the spell damage, right? Remember, spell damage applies to attack damage on Kinetic Bolt at 2x its value, so that 103% spell damage is actually 206% increased attack damage. Plus that 37 right there too. It's pretty cool, right? It's a neat skill that allows you to scale things that normally you wouldn't. And by stacking quality as well. Like that Mathel did this last league. He leaned into a meme with like alt quality gems, with anomalous cast on crit, with the alternate quality chance to bleed, stuff like that. I wanted to just push it in a different direction, but still building into a lot of quality on the anomalous kinetic bolt, but kind of scaling in a similar but different way. That's really the core of the build, is we're stacking power and frenzy charges. Our golems give us, we want to hit 100% crit. We want to get attack and cast speed, so we get that from these guys. We're running precision, hatred, haste, and discipline right now in the defensive. I'll show you guys like the defensive budget version in a little bit. This is kind of like my ideal setup. I want to show this first to give like an idea, but then I'll also show the budget, cheaper, like tanky version as well. Haste, discipline, precision, and hatred for our auras right there. The whole idea here is we just off screen and kill the monsters. Pretty crazy. In this configuration, we're using Nimbus as well, shoots the whole screen, blows up like a screen and a half, and the projectiles also come back to you. You're kind of just like hitting everything. Single target where you can use a +1 frenzy ring that's also crafted with the essence of delirium, and then this will just be absolutely insane damage. Purely clearing the Nimbus, just it can't be beat. You know, you don't have to aim, you just kind of like hold it down and it hits everything. Power charge stacking Heat Shiver, frenzy charge stacking shield, and then regular fancy boots, onslaught, elusive tailwind, and then just a quality of life Stygian vise right here. And also I would use these hands of the High Templar, but right now I am getting intimidate and exposure here. I didn't want to drop Hydrosphere back in. I'm using this for just, you know, pressing fewer buttons, but these gloves were actually even better for the frenzy charge, the attack crit, and all that. And these gloves only cost me 3 divines. I bought these a few weeks ago for only 3 divines. There are always nice hands of the High Templar. If you're wondering about bootstrapping your build and you're looking for some gloves, you know, always look into hands of the High Templar. They don't move very quickly, right? Because people are usually going for really big rare gloves or different unique gloves. You know, always look into these because there's usually some pretty good options out there. That is the core of the build. I'll go over the gems that I have equipped really quickly, and then I'm gonna swap all my gear and I'll show you guys the budget tanky version. Anomalous Flame Dash, actually really fun, especially with an Ashes of Stars. It makes your Flame Dash go very, very far. So that's a really fun one that you can just pick up really cheap. Definitely recommend that if you, you know, especially if you're using an Ashes. We're using Frenzy actually for single target on the bosses. This will let us generate our frenzy charges. We don't have any other frenzy charge generation besides Ice Bite, which only works when you're killing a monster. So while we're mapping, we sustain our frenzy charges just fine. But when we're going to fight like a big boss in its own arena, we do have to use frenzy to generate our own charges right there. And as you can see, frenzy is pretty bad with Nimbus. So when you're going to fight like a big boss, definitely drop the Nimbus, so you can actually hit them with your frenzy. We're self-casting Elemental Weakness right now. Haste, Hatred, Enlighten, Herald of Ice, Enlighten, Discipline, Anomalous Precision right here. I have this Determination as well. That's for the tanky version. And then we're using Anomalous Golems with Ashes of the Stars. Actually pushes it up to 50% increased buff effect. Shield Charge, and then we're using Mark on Hit with Sniper's Mark. You do get more damage if you want to manually cast the mark, but that's a pain in the ass. I have a very good Watcher's Eye here for crit chance and more flat cold damage to Hatred, which is what we care about the most. And then all of the other jewels that I have are just quality of life, some spell damage, some life, some chaos res, stuff like that. You know, in this configuration, definitely expensive, definitely some really nice stuff on, but it is not necessary to have a good time. So let's show you what the cheaper budget and tankier version is like. This is my expression of what I like, you know, especially with these gloves. This is what I like, how I like to play. But if you do want to try out the skill on a budget, and I know that most people have a lower tolerance for being a little squishy than I do, so I'll show you guys the tankier version. So this is my attempt at going more budget. I didn't have time to craft a different, cheaper shield, but you could just make an energy shield, spell damage shield that would be very similar in terms of the damage. Not quite as good, but very similar. Now, I didn't have time to make that shield. Besides the shield and the Watcher's Eye, everything that I have here is only a few divines. So let's go over what I have. You can just find a fractured wand, craft it with some essences, and finish the suffixes. Very, very easily for 5 to 10 divines, you can hit something pretty decent. The fledgling, so here's the really interesting thing. This gives us armor and evasion rating. I bought this for 50 chaos, double corrupted with cold damage leech and 90 cost and reservation multiplier, which makes it a lot more comfortable, right? Because we lost Ashes of the Stars, we lost that reservation efficiency. So it gives us proj speed, proj damage, and far shot, which as long as the monster is far enough away, it will bring it up to a 60% more damage multiplier. It's 20% less if they're close. But, you know, ideally you're not too close to the monsters when you're fighting them. So it can be a very nice more damage multiplier. You can actually use this in the expensive version as well, but kind of only with Nimbus. The downside is projectiles can't collide with enemies that are really close to you. So if a monster's in your face, like you always have to get away from them because the projectiles will just pass right through them. So there's the downside there. But this is a very cheap and underappreciated helmet, in my opinion. Definitely clunky in some ways. Heat Shiver is also cheap and just as good, so well, whatever your preference is, but I just wanted to show this off. And All's Uprising with the Hatred reservation, people are not really using this one at all. This is not the valued one. Yeah, 1 divine, right, for a Hatred one. Corrupted one with nothing on it. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the anoints. We're anointing +1 frenzy charge and the more expensive version, but in the budget tankier version, and I gotta stop saying the word tanky because everyone has their own definition. More resilient, I don't know. We're anointing Instinct, which allows us to cap our spell suppression. Then we're using Mark of the Shaper, which, you know, this is a pretty well-rolled one. I bought this for 50 chaos just a few minutes ago. And then just a diamond ring with Shaper and Elder influence, which I didn't even hit a Shaper Elder mod on this, unfortunately. So you just need Elder influence on a ring, And then you can craft this with the Essence of Delirium to get that cold damage per frenzy charge. Very, very cheap ring here. Total cost was like 50 chaos. Elder ring with Essence of Delirium, just like that. I bought these fractured boots for very cheap. These are just left over from my old build. They also have chance to avoid being shocked and spell suppression on them. This, in conjunction with this Abyss Jewel to avoid being shocked, lets us use the Storm Shroud. So fully elemental ailment immune, which is really nice. Spell suppression gloves, intimidate, exposure on hit. Crafted this with Essence of Zeal for some attack speed on there until I hit some life, and then we just went with it. We're also using additional physical damage reduction while focused. That with the 20% double damage on focus here is pretty nice. We can get an additional focus 20% on the wand if we want to. Lean all the way into that. We're using a Skin of the Lords here with Mage Bane. With our Flask Up, we have 15.8k armor, 61% evasion, 323 life regen, max spell suppression. I don't want to recraft my gear. Like, this gear is for another build, but you know, you can get your Chaos Rest somewhere as well. Besides the Watcher's Eye and this shield, this is everything that I have here is only a few divines. It is not expensive whatsoever. It has 5,200 life. Now, normally that amount of armor would not be impressive, the 15.8k armor. However, the way that it works is armor scales on, based against the size of the hit, the percentage that it will mitigate. The cool thing here, we actually have a lot of flat physical damage mitigation in terms of the Chaos Golem, which I believe is giving 23% right now. And then when we're focused, that's another 12%. So we have 35% cut off the top before it hits your armor. Armor is the last layer of physical damage mitigation. So yeah, in this configuration, we're at about like 12 to 15 million DPS. Very playable, very nice, relatively tanky in my opinion. If you guys are interested in this, I'll give you guys the 2 POBs below. But like I said at the very beginning, this is just a fun little toy that I wanted to build out into something that was playable and could do anything that you needed to in the game, really. And in fact, what I'm going to do on stream later today is I'm going to push it really, really far. I'm actually borrowing a Mage Blood from someone, and I'm just going to go all out and see like Kinetic Bolt with the Mage Blood and just pushing it with like crazy stuff. Can I just like AFK in a Simulacrum with Kinetic Bolt? Just for fun, why not? And then, oh yeah, just to quickly demonstrate also, this is the MTX. The bright lights are a little bit much for you. This is what the MTX looks like, which it's a lot more soothing on the eyes, but I think it's actually harder to see what's on the screen. So there you go, a little demonstration of that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to go make some lunch, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.